Hello and welcome to the final in my series of three Free as a Bird class in a box tutorials. This is the final card and it's this one here. Let me move these papers out of the way. So this is a little pop-up shadow box card. I have actually slightly deconstructed this to make this easier for you to see how it goes together. But it basically starts as a piece of 12 by 12 card. You can get 3 of these out of one sheet of 12 by 12. There are other designs that you can do to make this from an A4, but that involves 2 separate pieces of card and connecting them together. And I always think if you've got movement of any kind, the fewer pieces, different pieces, the better. So it folds nice and flat. And then as you open up, the little pop-up is activated, and then you can have a sentiment or a picture, it could be a photograph, anything on the inside, and then it folds nice and flat. So if I just open this, you can see how I put the components together, and I will give you all of the measurements. This is a fairly easy one to do. You can do it really with any card base as long as you've got plenty of length to work with. You could make this higher as well, so I happen to have chosen to put it into a square, but you could easily do this as a 6 by 4 like a standard card, and then you'd get 2 out of a 12 by 12 sheet. So basically we have a front piece which is 4 inches by 4 inches. We have a middle piece which has a 1/2 inch piece scored out of it to create the little height. And then we have the front cover which also has, the inside cover which also has 1/2 inch taken off. So basically, if you didn't have that and just folded it in 3, you'd have your 12 by 12 card into a 4 by 4 card. So in the pack that you've got, I have already scored this and put the hole in the centre, because not everybody has die cutting machines. Now this could be a circle, it doesn't have to be that particular shape. You could also put a little window in it if you wanted to, with some acetate to make it look like a proper little window. So let me just write on this one here those measurements for you so that you can see how it was scored, and you've got a reference if you want to create this again. Just trying to find a nice dark pen to use. So the whole piece is 4 inches wide and 12 inches long, or tall, whichever way you want to do it. So this first score here is at 4 inches, and this score here is at 8 inches. Okay, so you're basically scoring it into thirds. And then what you need to do is score this line here and this one here at whatever depth you want the window to be. So I've chosen 1/2 inch. Okay, if you wanted a narrower box part, you can make that smaller. If you wanted a larger box part, you'd make that bigger, but then you'd end up with a much smaller piece to start with, to finish up with. Okay, so these score lines are 4, 7.5 inches and 11.5 inches. I'm hoping that is in your picture. So that's your score line, score line, score line. So it's actually just 4 score lines: 4, 7.5, 8 and then 11.5. So when you're doing it, if you're not very good at calculating things, just literally split it into 3 and then add a score line, whatever you want the height of the box to be. Okay, so those are the measurements. So this is what I've done here. So I've scored it at 4, 7.5, 8 and 11.5, and I've punched this piece here because this is going to be the little window that comes in here. Okay, and this is always the finished size. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is put some paper on the inside and on the cover. This one is just under 4 inches square, and this one would be 4 inches square, but we've just taken off that ½ an inch. So I'm actually just going to reverse these pieces of paper. I'm going to put this one on the inside and this one on the outside. Now this can be anything you like, so it could just be a sentiment if you preferred. So I'm just going to get my trimmer to hand. So I'm going to put this one on the front cover. So this one is just under 4 inches. So I'm going to make that 9.5 centimetres, just to make it easier to remember. So 9.5 by 9.5, like so. Let me just show you that. So that is going to be my front layer, like so. And then this piece is going to be the same thing, but minus that ½ an inch. So I'll cut 9.5 first, and then it'll be 9.5, and that brings it to, it's about 3 3/4. Sorry, I'm swapping and changing. So ½ an inch less would be 3 1/4. So it's sort of 8.3 centimetres. The main thing is it's just going to fit in that panel before the score line. So if you prefer, just measure that and add in your margin. Okay, but this is 9.5 by 8.3 approximately. So I can go ahead and actually put those layers on. Okay, nothing to stop you using the birds on the front. Okay, if you wanted to, but I'm wondering whether you've had enough of birds and you just want some flowers now. So let's put these layers down. So just using some wet glue, and you can layer this up with another layer of card behind it if you wanted to. You can make this all a completely stamped image if you prefer, entirely up to you. And this one is going to go in there. Okay, so the same size minus the height of your box. And the nice thing about this is, well, you don't see much of this piece of paper. You could leave it, almost leave it plain. Okay, so you can see how this is going to work. If we fold these edges, this one, and this one, then what's going to happen is that we're going to attach that bit to the front, if you can see that. So it will fold flat and fold up. Obviously I haven't stuck it down, which is why it's not going completely flat. Okay, so you could put a piece of window sheet in here. What I quite liked, and this was based on a card design originally done by Michelle Last, is to put another little window on the inside just to frame it. You could put a window on the outside, as well if you wanted to, or instead of. All of these frames that we've been using and that you've had in your packs are from a set of 9 dies, and these go with the Free as a Bird. These are nested shaped dies, and so you get lots of different layers down to some really little tiny ones, really cute for tiny tags. You also get a line of stitching, which is quite useful if you wanted to put a line of stitching, for example, top and bottom of your card. You could run this through on your designer paper at any point. So these are called stitched nested label dies. Okay, they're £33 and you get a set of 9 of those, so you can see the different sizes right up to this huge one here. The one that we used for the earlier card with the stamped image was this one, so it wasn't even the largest one. So if you want to order those extra, that's no problem at all. Obviously, if you've got other shaped label dies, you can use those, or you can use punches, or you can do it the old-fashioned way with a piece of with a pencil and some scissors or a craft knife, depending on what shape you're cutting. Okay, so I'm going to pop this piece in here. So all I've done is I've just cut it smaller than this piece here, because I didn't want to waste too much card, but with the smaller die. Okay, so all I'm actually going to do is fold this out and put some glue on the reverse, and then just position that manually, if you like. So what I'm actually going to do is use my pencil and just draw a rough line, or shall I do it this way? I might do it this way. What I don't want to do is get any ink in the wrong place. So what I'm going to do is just draw a line here and here. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Sorry, I hesitated then because I want to make sure that it's I don't want any glue in here. That's what I'm thinking, you see. So I could either draw a line here on the espresso, but you wouldn't see it very well, and know that I could put the glue on the outside. But what I'm actually going to do is the reverse of that, and I'm actually going to turn this round because it sits that way a bit better. So just check with your piece which is the best way to fit. This is not necessarily right in the centre of that piece of card either, by the way. Okay, so this is where this bit is going to go, and this is all going to be hidden, so you don't even need to rub this out. So I know now that I can put just a little bit of glue along this edge, and this will be inside of that. Just making sure that I line it back up again roughly. So I would definitely recommend wet glue and not snail for this, only because you don't want bits of snail attaching, and you want a nice solid connection. So there we go. You could trim this down a little bit further if you wanted to, and if you look at the stitching, this is the right side with the nice detailed stitching. This is the wrong side. I appreciate you can't see that necessarily, but it's not as stitched. So just make sure you're turning it the right side over. And what I'm going to do is get that roughly in the right place and pop it down. Now the main thing is that the glue is on the crumb cake piece, and I know, hopefully, that it's not going to come through. So there we have our little window, like so. So we're building up that picture. Okay. So what I don't want to do now is stick anything down until I put the piece in the middle. And there's various ways that you can do that. So you can take a die cut, you can take a piece of the paper and draw around it. So what you can do is decide which bit. So even though this is designed to go on its side, I can turn this round and decide which bit of the bird I want to see. If you don't want the bird, you could have, maybe not that one, you could have a different, you know, just a different pattern altogether. Or you could have a sentiment instead. So I'm going to add a bird. Let me just see what I've got here. I think I'm going to do, I could do with a little bit of pink actually, because she's got some pink on to match my pink card. So all I'm going to do is just use my pencil and draw around it. Now if you've got the dies, you can just literally get the die that you need, pop it on there and cut it out. So if this was the die, for example, then you could just position it on there and run it through the die cutting machine. Okay, but if you haven't got a die cutting machine, or you haven't got this size of die, then just use the template that you've got there, and it's the smaller one that you want, to decide which bit of that bird you want to see. I guess you could make it bigger if you wanted to, but it, yeah, you could make it bigger. So you can manually cut that. You can cut it with scissors, you can cut it with your trimmer. I'm just going to cut it with scissors for the moment, but you could cut it with the die as well. Because you don't see much of this in detail, you just see the finished window. I'm actually just cutting this a little bit bigger. It's a nice easy shape to cut out actually, like so, like that. Okay, so this was our sample. Alright, when this is attached, it's going to pop up and you'll see that on the inside. Now it's very easy to think when you put this one down that it needs to be in the centre of this whole panel, but of course the whole thing is offset. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So let's bring our panel back. Like so, so that's my front, that's my inner, and this is going to be my window. Okay, so what I can do is literally just manually work out where that's going to go. What you don't want to do is put this flat down and put your bird in that hole there, because when you pop it up it'll be offset to the side. Okay, does that make some sense? You could just do it by eye and put it in the middle. Okay, it won't be that far out. Okay, and you can add this with dimensionals. Okay, if you wanted just a sentiment, I know this is the wrong size for the sentiment, but if you wanted a sentiment on the inside, okay, you could do that. Remember, this shape could be anything. It could be a square, it could be a circle, and if that was the case, then you could put the bird on the outside. Okay, and if that was the case, obviously I'd tidy that up and remove the marks. Okay, so entirely up to you. Lots of flexibility really. So what I'm going to do is add some wet glue and pop this in. Just going to remove those pencil marks. With a good quality rubber. Don't want to spoil your lovely paper after all that. You could make this slightly bigger as well if you wanted to. I've done it worst case as fitting that window exactly. Okay, so the way that I calculated where that was to go was I just put some wet glue on, yeah, should have done some dimensionals, but I've done wet glue now. Sorry. Okay, so wet glue or dimensionals. Okay, pop this one up. Okay, slide this underneath. Alright, and then just take time to position it. So if you use dimensionals, what you can do is put dimensionals on and then add a little bit of wet glue to the back of the dimensionals. There we go. You can see that. Okay, and the final step is to obviously decorate the front and put this little bit together. And the only thing that you need to do is put glue on this edge here and literally fold it flat, because when you fold this one over you get back to your sort of 3 pieces of 4 inches. So I tend to open this out for the glue, and I would definitely recommend wet glue. Tear tape would work, or very strong glue. I wouldn't use snail for this because it's got a lot of weight to push against. Okay, so that goes there. That goes flat. Don't worry that that's offset. Fold that one over. Okay, give it a good press, and I would, you could just pop a peg or something on it, or punch on it, just to make sure you get a really good seal before you start opening it. Obviously you can just have a quick test. Okay, while I do the front, I'm just going to put a punch on there, like so. I'm going to pop this one back, having deconstructed it. Let's make it work again. So fold there. Okay, might put a punch on that one, why not, while I'm here. Okay, so for the front panel, all I did was take one of these. You should still have some in your pack. You could use, you know, just a strip of card, or punch out your own design. And then all I did was I stamped, in this case, some of the flowers rather than the bird. And you've got, if you've got the stamp set, you've got these lovely sort of blossoms, a little bud, and a green leaf there. So I'm going to add, I'll do a large and a small flower, and a very edge of green, and then a small sentiment. So I'm going to put another thank you on there, I think, if I can find it from yesterday. So let me grab my grid paper, pop this one down. I have my espresso and a block. And I think what I'm going to do is, actually I'm just going to make that thanks for being you, I'm going to do, because I can't see my little thank you stamp. I put it back in my box with all of the other equipment in it. So thanks for being you. Let's just test it out. I'm going to have that slightly high, like so. Oh. There we go. And then pop that out and add some flowers and some leaves even. There. here. And then I can just use blends pens or markers to colour these in. You can make some stunning cards just with this set actually, even without the birds. Let's have that little top in there. And another one there. Like so. Turn that over so you can, it's not too confusing. So I've got some green. Let's have a look at what I've got on the inside. So yellow, got some yellow flowers. Grab some yellow. So just do it to suit. As I said, you can reverse this round, put your sentiment on the inside and have a bird or flowers on the outside if you prefer. Let's just pop a little bit of this in the centre. This is Dark Daffodil Delight. So all I did was pick out the colour of the flowers on the inside piece. Daffodil Delight. So this is the light one. So I'm just going over that. Like so. And a little bit of green for the leaves. I do like these little stitch framelets. The stitching is on the inside and the outside as well, so when you cut a frame out you still see the stitching. There we go. Let's cover that ink pad up. And then I can pop this on here. Might add a little bit of bling as well. I have got a larger piece, so I'm going to layer those up. I'm going to put that one flat and then the other one with dimensionals. Just going to use some snail. Turn this the right way round so I've got the best part of it, like so, and some dimensionals to pop that on, which I've now lost. Not sure how I could lose them when I had them literally 3 minutes ago. Well, maybe 5. Open a fresh packet if in doubt. There we go. So I'm going to put 4 on here, I think, 1 for each of the ends and then 1 to balance the centres, like so. I could have made those flowers pink for the cover, couldn't I? This could go anywhere. We could put this up here. This would change. One down at the bottom. So there's my front, and now it pops up. There's my frame. So you could write here, or you could put a panel on the back. Entirely up to you. But that is the pop-up shadow box design. So that opens up, as I say. You could make a sentiment. I would have put that on dimensionals if I'd not been in such a hurry to put it down. Could add a window sheet behind that if you wanted to. You could sandwich it between those two layers. That would look quite nice, like you're looking in a window. So there we go. That is the 6th card in our series of Free as a Bird. Now you may or may not have been watching these in sequence. So they start off, number 1 is the basic start here, and they build up to be slightly more complex. Hopefully not too complex, right the way through to the end. Obviously you don't have to do all of the cards, you just do the ones that you like the most, and hopefully there's plenty of supplies in there, especially for the standard sized cards. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the class in a box. I look forward to seeing some of the cards and projects you've made. Thank you so much. Take care now. Bye bye.